I'll let you know when we are ready.
Okay.
Okay, just 1 second. Okay, Judge, we are now live. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the mock trial. Mock trial round 4 is now in session. The Honorable Judge Julie Field presiding.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome. We're calling the case of Dakota Weirs versus Lush Fertilizer, Inc. And the participants are for the ryegrass team and the lemongrass team. Let me ask, first of all, that the score jurors please keep their cameras on throughout so that the participants in the mock trial can see you. I think it's helpful to them. I know that this is a bit of an awkward format, and I appreciate the flexibility of everyone involved to be able to take part in this, as unusual as it may feel. Let me ask, are there any preliminary matters before we begin? Anything from the plaintiff? Let me start there. Ms. Saldana,
No,
okay. And Ms. Munguia.
Yes, Your Honor, we would just like to ask that, as you saw earlier, our witnesses are sharing one computer. So if you would just give them time to go around, and if there are any technology issues, we ask that time be stopped on both timekeeper sides.
Absolutely. The court will so order that the time will stop if there are technology issues for any of the participants.
Thank you.
All right. Are the plaintiffs ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed? Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Then let's begin with opening statements, and time will start now.
Your Honor and members of the jury, I represent the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs. The plaintiff is suing Lush Fertilizers for being the cause of their illness. We are gathered here today to discuss the tragedy Lush Fertilizer products have caused the plaintiff. Prior to developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Dakota worked outdoors with Haven Landscaping from the age of 14. Dakota was primarily responsible for spreading seed and fertilizer due to the fact that they weren't quite old enough to work the machinery. Because of this debilitating illness, Dakota is unable to do any of the things they did prior to working with fertilizers such as Lush Fertilizers at their job. In prior years, Dakota participated in many things other than going to work. They had different passions, one in particular being playing the piano, which in fact was the reason they had received a full ride scholarship to Juilliard, a pristine music school. Sadly, they had to give up on this dream and turn down the scholarship due to the fact that aside from having swollen lymph nodes, having frequent chills, and chest pains, they couldn't even sit at the piano long enough because of being constantly fatigued and having shortness of breath. Aside from playing the piano, they chose to help others and were an active member of their community. They volunteered at the local homeless shelter in which they would help serve meals, wash dishes, and try to be helpful for those less fortunate than them. They were also widely active in school settings. They were a part of the National Honor Society at their school, and they were a part of their school's student government. They received good grades and enjoyed being with friends. Unfortunately, the plaintiff was put into a horrible position due to the negligence of Lush Fertilizer. The plaintiff went through not only physical but emotional hardship due to the lack of concern shown by Lush Fertilizers when choosing to not put warning labels on their products. Today you will hear from Carson Durst, who was a scientist for Lush Fertilizers, who for years worked on the research and development team for Lush Fertilizers. They will testify that not only did Lush Fertilizer know the effects of DRUFO, but that the CEO of Lush Fertilizers, Blake Doncourt, had received an email regarding the recommendations of what to do in order to make their products entirely safe. They will also testify to being in a room where concerns of DRUFO being potentially carcinogenic were ignored. Aside from Carson, you will hear from Dr. Casey Rogers. They will testify that DRUFO is carcinogenic. They, who in fact had conducted an experiment that determined that DRUFO is carcinogenic, and will provide evidence to this. Thus, Lush Fertilizer chose to ignore the fact that their product contained possible carcinogenic products and didn't think that it would be smart to advertise it on their labels either. It's not Dakota's fault that Lush Fertilizers chose to exclude the entirety of their products within their fertilizer. Dakota is an innocent victim of both this disease and the company. You might ask, why Lush Fertilizers? Truth is, the plaintiff had worked with this product at their job with Haven Landscaping and was concerned because of the main ingredient within Lush Fertilizers being DRUFO. DRUFO being known to be carcinogenic and being a cause of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, after hearing the evidence, we ask that the court find Lush Fertilizer liable and responsible for the development of this horrible disease by the plaintiff.
All right, thank you, Ms. Saldana. And who is giving the opening for the defense?
My name is Callista Cobb, and I'll be giving the defense opening today.
All right, Ms. Cobb, you may proceed.
Careless consumers can cause cancer. Dakota Weirs has developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as a result of his careless use of Lush Fertilizer. This diagnosis is a tragic result, but ultimately, this is not what this case is about. DRUFO, a safe product of Lush Fertilizer, if used properly, was used in a way that did not fit the safety warnings and guidelines on the packaging. Dakota was a careless user of Lush Fertilizer. His carelessness of not wearing protective gear and protecting himself while working has caused damage to his everyday life. His carelessness of not following user safety recommendations stated directly on the packaging. Lush Fertilizer product is a safe product that does not cause diseases. Careless consumers can cause cancer. May it please the court, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Callista Cobb, and I'm here on the behalf of the defense, Lush Fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer is being brought here today on the claims from Dakota Weirs that their disease, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, was caused by Lush product. They have claimed that the Lush product contains a chemical bonding agent, DRUFO. Dakota is claiming that DRUFO can cause cancer. However, as we move through today's case, you will hear that DRUFO is a safe product. Dakota will try to prove that DRUFO causes cancer, and he must prove that claim by the preponderance of the evidence. Meaning, Dakota Weirs must prove that it is more than likely not that Lush Fertilizer's product caused his cancer. This is the burden they cannot meet. If the plaintiff is unable to meet the preponderance on either side of the case today, that you must reject the claim in all. As Dakota Weirs bears the burdens, you're going to hear from their witnesses first. We anticipate you are going to hear from Dr. Casey Rogers, Carson Durst, and Dakota Weirs. When you hear their testimony, we are going to ask that you carefully consider their credibility. I anticipate that you're going to hear from Dr. Casey Rogers that has a financial and professional reputation loss if this case resolves in Lush's favor. We next anticipate the plaintiff will present Carson Durst, a disgruntled former employee of Lush Fertilizer. You're going to hear that Carson Durst has violated a non-disclosure agreement. The last witness I anticipate the plaintiff will present in Dakota Weirs, a careless user of Lush Fertilizer. We ask you to keep all of these in mind as these witnesses testify and decide if these witnesses are credible. The defense will present the following evidence that shows Lush Fertilizer is not responsible for Dakota Weirs' diagnosis. You'll see that there is a non-disclosure agreement between Carson Durst and Lush Fertilizer. You will also be shown there is a user safety recommendation that Dakota Weirs had failed to follow. You will also hear from these three witnesses, Blake Dunkert, Skylar Weirs, and Dr. Devin Williams. Blake Dunkert, CEO of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated, will tell you that Lush's aim is a to create a safe product for the environment. Skylar Weirs, a fraternal twin of Dakota Weirs. Skylar Weirs is a scholarly research, will provide valid resources and information on how safe Drufo is. Dr. Devin Williams, the lead toxicology research and developer at Labs for Lush and Fertilizer Incorporated, will explain to you that Drufo is a safe product and how Lush works to be an environmentally responsible company. Throughout these testimonies, my team will prove that Lush Fertilizer is not at fault for the cause of Dakota Weirs' cancer. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Michaela Sanchez-Menguia, will come before you and review the testimony and evidence you have received in this case. Following that review, we will be asking that you find Lush Fertilizer is not liable for any damages because careless consumers can cause cancer.
All right, thank you. If the plaintiff would call their first witness, please.
Your Honor, I would like to call Don Court to the stand.
All right.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Dakota Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
Let's talk about your employment status and history. Are you currently employed?
No, I'm not. I can't be employed because of this disease.
Ms. Weirs, you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma recently, right?
Unfortunately, I was diagnosed with this disease where my lymph nodes would swell and severe chest pains and chills, and I'd get tired really easily and severe shortness of breath.
Now, prior to developing this disease, did you used to be employed with Haven Landscaping?
I did. I worked with Haven Landscaping since I was 14 years old, so 5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay. And what did your work with Haven Landscaping include?
So I wasn't quite old enough to work any of the big machinery. So my main work included just spreading the seeds and the fertilizers and working with my hands.
Okay. And what safety equipment did you use while working outdoors?
Honestly, I didn't use any. I didn't know that Lush fertilizer caused cancer, and it was hot out, and no one else was. I was young and I didn't know what the consequences of my actions would be.
Okay. And how did you find out that you worked with Lush Fertilizer while being employed with Haven Landscaping?
So after a pretty serious bout of depression, I was on the couch, like always now, and I saw a news article about Drufo and the fact that Lush had leaked documents and they lied about the safety of Drufo. And it got me thinking about my cancer and where I contracted
Your
it.
Honor, on hearsay.
Okay, what's the response?
Your Honor, this goes to relevance of the case and sorry, let me.
Let me ask Ms. Cobb specifically, what is the hearsay that you're objecting to?
I'm objecting on hearsay on the witness's response.
Okay, Ms. Saldana.
This Your Honor, this is just talking about how she knew about the different fertilizers that she worked with at her job.
Okay. And Ms. Cobb, any reply?
I'm objecting on the hearsay of that the TV ad is an out-of-court statement, and they're using it to prove their relevance.
The objection is overruled. I will allow it for the purpose of showing that Dakota Weirs acquired some knowledge. Go ahead.
Okay. So that's why you decided to check what fertilizer you used at your previous job, correct?
Yeah, I was, like I said, since I saw this, I wanted to make sure that I was working with Lush, and there wasn't any warning labels on the packaging when I asked my old boss if there was anything on the packaging about it, and there wasn't.
Okay, now let's discuss your life outside of your employment. How have you been an active member of your community?
I was a huge member in my community. I helped out at the local homeless shelter.
Objection, relevance.
Ms. Saldana, what's the relevance?
Your Honor, this goes to talk about what she lost due to developing her disease.
Okay. The objection is overruled. I find it to be relevant to damages.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. How have you been an active member of your community?
So yeah, like I said, I would help out at the local homeless shelters when I had free time. And I was super involved in school, National Honor Society, student government, and I just really loved being a member of my community and helping out where I could.
Okay, and because of your disease, what have you lost?
I've lost a lot. My life has pretty much been ruined by this disease because I can't do any of the things I love to do anymore, like being an active member in my community. I can't even play piano, and I had just recently received a scholarship from Juilliard, a full ride actually, and I can't go because of this awful disease, and I'm just really scared that I'll never get back to doing the things I truly love.
Okay, thank you. That will be all.
All right, thank you. Any cross-examination? And Ms. Saldana, if you'd like to leave your camera on for purposes of objection, that's fine,
Yes, Your Honor, I have a cross-examination.
please.
Ms. Weirs, you have worked at Havens Landscaping since 14, correct?
Yeah, I have.
And at Havens Landscaping, you were a technician.
Could you rephrase the question, please?
Sorry. You were a landscaping technician for Havens, correct?
I spread seed and fertilizers, if that's what you're wondering.
Yeah, you're primarily responsible for spreading this seed and fertilizer around.
Yeah.
So that requires you to use your hands to spread the products around.
Well, of course. How else would I be able to spread the seed and fertilizer?
And did you wear gloves while spreading this fertilizer around?
No, I didn't, but no one else was wearing them either.
And were you told to wear face coverings?
Can you rephrase the question, please?
When you were working for Havens, were you told to wear a face covering?
I don't know. They might have mentioned it, but I'm not sure.
And were you also told to wear long sleeves?
Like I said for the last question, they probably mentioned it. It was probably mentioned at some point, yeah.
Was it true that your boss had told you to wear those items of clothing?
Yeah, that's true.
But as you said before, pretty much everyone did not wear any of that. They just wore shorts and t-shirts, correct?
Yeah, everybody was not wearing or following any of these things because it was really hot out.
Your Honor, may I have my co-counsel share a screen for Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Just give me a moment while we get that shared. Ms. Weirs, do you recognize this?
Yeah, I recognize this. This was on the Lush fertilizer bag.
And where have you seen this?
Like I said, on the Lush fertilizer bag.
And your boss sent this to you, correct?
My boss didn't send this to me. This was just on the bags that we worked with when we were working with Lush fertilizer.
So you're saying your boss had not sent you this?
To my knowledge, no.
Do you remember making a statement prior to today, Ms. Weirs?
A statement about what?
Were you, are you aware that you had made a a statement prior to today?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm kind of confused.
So before today, do you remember making a statement, a written statement prior to today?
Yes, I remember making a written statement.
And do you, sorry, I'm trying to get my notes together. And you reviewed this statement carefully?
I think I misspoke before. I think my boss did send me this. I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood your question.
No, thank you. And would you say that this Exhibit 1 is fair and accurate representation of what you have seen before?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
All right, any objection from the plaintiff's counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 will be admitted.
And could you please follow along as I read the user safety recommendation? As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of respiratory or N95 face mask is recommended. Following manufacturer's instructions for cleaning, maintaining personal protective equipment, PPE, users should wash hands before and after use of this product. I read that correctly. Correct, Mrs. Weirs?
Yes.
And now that you see those safety instructions were included for a reason, correct?
They're safety recommendations, so yes.
But you ignore those instructions, correct?
Objection,
Yes,
Your
but
Honor.
no one else was wearing
Wait
them.
a minute, Ms. Weirs, you don't need to answer that until I've ruled on the objection. Ms. Saldana, what's your objection?
Asked and answered.
Response?
Your Honor, I don't believe I've asked if they had ignored these instructions.
Okay, overruled. I'll allow the question. So Dakota Weirs may answer.
Would you like me to repeat the question, Ms. Weirs?
Yes.
You have ignored these instructions, correct?
Yes, but so did everyone else. No one else was wearing any of these.
And that
We
was
didn't know.
because it was too hot, Ms. Weirs.
It was too hot, and yeah, it didn't say it would cause cancer on their products label.
And that was even though you were careless and ignored those safety instructions.
Like I said, it doesn't say, like, there was no risks that we knew of that was associated with this. So, I mean, if it doesn't say like it's going to hurt us, then why would we follow these if we didn't know?
So that is a yes.
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Weirs, you may step down. If the plaintiff would call their next witness, please.
Your Honor, I would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
All right,
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the records.
Casey Rogers, Rogers.
and Mr. Rogers, if you could keep your voice up. It's dropping down at the end, so I want to be sure that the jury can hear you.
Dr. Rogers, what is your current form of employment?
I'm currently employed as a professor in horticulture and Entomology at the University of California in Berkeley.
And what's your education background?
I have a PhD in agriculture and entomology from the University of California in Berkeley. I also have a bachelor's degree in agriculture and chemistry from CSU.
So what courses have you taught?
Currently, an introduction to horticulture, an introduction to horticulture food crops and herbicide selectivity and action.
Please refer to Exhibit 6. Can you tell the court what this is?
I'm sorry, exhibit, Ms. Chambers, which exhibit?
Exhibit 6.
6. Okay.
That is my curriculum vitae.
I would like to ask the court to admit Exhibit 6 as evidence.
Okay, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, lack of foundation and bolstery.
Okay, Ms. Chambers, any response?
Would you like me to lay more foundation?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Rogers, can you please tell the court about what your curriculum vitae is?
My curriculum vitae is a list of my research publication. Oh, I'm sorry. My curriculum vitae is my research interests, current projects, courses, and my educational background.
Once again, I would like to ask the court to admit Exhibit 6 as evidence.
Okay, the part of the objection, Ms. Chambers, was bolstering. If you have any response to that portion of Ms. Munguia's objection.
I have no response except this is his CV. I mean, it should be admitted as evidence.
Okay, any further reply?
Your Honor, this Dr. Casey Rogers' CV is not relevant to the case at this matter, so I'm going on relevance and bolstery.
Okay, the objection is overruled. Exhibit 6 will be admitted. I do believe that an expert witness, his qualifications should be considered by the jury. So the objection is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Dr. Rogers, what is your connection to Lush fertilizer products?
I've been studying the harmful effects of Drufo.
So please refer to Exhibit 7. Can you tell the court what this is?
That is a list of my research publications.
And what are your research publications?
Well, there are 6 in total, but I have 2 going over the harmful effects of Drufo on the human body.
I would like to ask the court to admit Exhibit 7 as evidence.
Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
Okay, any response?
Again, would you like me to lay more foundation?
If you think you need to, I'll leave it up to you.
I think the proper foundation has been laid for this exhibit to go into evidence.
Okay. Any reply?
Yes, Your Honor, I also would like to go on relevance because I don't see how Dr. Casey Rogers' publications are gonna further the plaintiff's demeanor later on.
Okay, the objection is overruled. Exhibit 7 will be admitted. Again, I do think it is appropriate for the jury to be able to evaluate the credibility of Dr. Rogers by understanding his research.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would like to ask the court to qualify Dr. Casey Rogers as an expert witness in the field of entomology, horticulture, and the effects of Drufo on the human body.
Okay, any objection to Dr. Rogers being accepted as an expert? As offered.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Dr. Rogers will be so accepted as an expert. I will just note that the 2 of our jurors are having technical difficulties and so are not able to have their cameras on, just FYI for counsel and the witnesses. but they can hear fine. They can hear and see you, but they just can't put their own cameras on. Okay, you may proceed.
I would like to move on to Dr. Rogers' research into Drufo. So did you conduct any studies on Drufo?
Yes, I did.
And how did you conduct your study?
Well, I had 3 groups of people. The first group was a control group and had no contact with Drufo. The second group was a group with occasional access to Drufo. And the third group had access to Drufo on a daily basis.
And what were the final results of your study?
The group who had access to Drufo on a daily basis had 10 times higher chances of getting cancer. The second group who had occasional access to Drufo had 5 times more likely to get cancer.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. That will be all, Your Honor.
Okay, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Isn't it true that you've never published a scientific journal on the study that you conducted?
Well, it is in the list of my published research, so it has been published.
And isn't it true that you have a financial bias in this matter?
Well, I'm here today to spread my life's work.
So is that a yes or a no?
I am getting paid here along with every other expert witness, if that's what you're implying.
You could have a loss of reputation depending on the outcome of this case, correct?
I would not say so.
And isn't it true that no one else has ever replicated your study?
It has been peer reviewed.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, it has been peer reviewed.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
My apologies. Your career has been focused on finding harmful effects caused by chemical agents, correct?
Yes.
And this can make, this is true that this can make you biased towards your own study, correct?
I suppose so.
No further questions.
Okay. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, do you have a college degree?
I do.
And how does your degree relate to Drufo?
Well, I've been studying agriculture with my PhD along with all my other studies.
Objection out of the scope of cross.
Okay, Ms. Chambers, response?
Your Honor, these questions relate to Dr. Rogers' qualifications.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I agree that it is outside the scope of the cross and that you did lay his qualifications out prior to his admission as an expert.
Okay.
Any further redirect?
No, Your Honor, that will be all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dr. Rogers, thank you for your time today. You may step down. The plaintiffs have their next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call Carson Durst to the stand.
All right. You may
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
And where did you attend college?
I went to Arizona State University with my friend Charles Doncourt.
And what did you major in?
I majored in chemical engineering and graduated with a bachelor's.
How long have you been working with pesticides or other lawn care products?
Since 2003, when I started working at Lush Fertilizer.
Do you know the Doncourts?
I do.
And what was your relationship with them?
They're like the family I never had. Charles Doncourt, the Doncourt's oldest son, was my best friend. We were absolutely inseparable. We played soccer together, and so that meant a lot of long car trips to soccer games, Sunday dinners every night, trips to the lake house every summer. They were great.
And how long did you work for Lush Fertilizer?
I worked for Lush Fertilizer for 3 years, starting in 2003 and ending in 2006.
And what did you do for them?
I was hired as a intern, and then in the period of about 3 months, I was promoted to product development engineer.
And has your relationship with the Doncourts affected your job?
Well, yes, Blake Doncourt, the CEO, did hire me, but I assure you that I was qualified for this position.
So what did you witness while part of the Druco team?
Well, when I first got there, they were having an in-house study concerning the safety of Drufo, and I was tasked with researching the safety.
Did you find a compound in Drufo that may have been carcinogenic in rats?
Yes, during my researching, I found a study from England saying that Drufo could possibly be carcinogenic in rats.
Hearsay?
The objection is hearsay. Okay. All right. Ms. Vasquez, any response?
Your Honor, this is not hearsay because my witness, Carson Durst, was employed at Lush Fertilizer and was participating in the study where they found the compound in Drufo that may have been carcinogenic in rats.
Okay. Any response from Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, Your Honor. This is an out-of-court statement.
Which part?
The England study on the rats.
Okay. All right. I am going to overrule the objection. I don't believe it's hearsay in this context. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What was the reaction after the concerns about Drufo being carcinogenic were raised?
Well, we were all called into a conference, the product development team, and one of our scientists told us that not only Drufo could possibly be carcinogenic, but could also be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We're told.
Your Honor, hearsay.
Okay. Response?
Your Honor, this is a third-party admission.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, any reply? Well, let me ask this question. What do you mean third-party admission? Ms. Vasquez.
I apologize. I'm sorry. One moment, please. I'm sorry. I have this all in my notes, but I seem to have lost my document.
Okay. Just take a moment if you need to.
Thank you. I apologize, Your Honor. I must have misspoke. I was reading the wrong part of my document when I said third-party admission.
Okay. So what is your response then to the hearsay objection?
Once again, Carson Durst was employed at Lush Fertilizer and part of the study. Therefore, they were there when the reactions were and they were there and witnessed the reactions amongst the company when the concerns of Drufo being carcinogenic were raised.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez?
The person they're referring to that made this statement is not in this court, and it's still an out-of-court statement.
Okay. I'm going to overrule the objection. I don't believe it's hearsay in this context.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to enter Exhibit 4 into the stand.
Exhibit 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Durst, could you please take a look at Exhibit 4 and tell the jury what this is?
This is an email sent from Jerry Langley, the product manager.
And could you give context to this email?
Yes, this email was sent out to me, Blake Johncourt, and many other people on the product development team concerning the safety of Drufo and the reinitiation of the in-house study to further test its safety.
And what was recommended to make Drufo safe?
It was recommended by a colleague of mine to bake Drufo to get rid of any possible carcinogenic properties.
So because Drufo was possibly carcinogenic, what was recommended to Lush to have done?
They should have baked it. Any concern at all about it being dangerous to its users should have made management.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Okay, response.
Your Honor, according to Rule 701, this answer is well within the witness's perception as they were surrounded by fertilizers their whole life and they have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and it helps clarify the witness's testimony.
Any reply?
Yes, Your Honor. This witness is not an expert witness.
Okay.
Your Honor, in order for a witness, although this witness is not an expert witness, this witness has been surrounded by this and has a degree in chemical engineering. Therefore, this is within their perception to answer.
I am going to overrule the objection because I don't believe it's speculation, but I will note that Rule 701 is not the proper rule to cite to for a non-expert. But I will overrule the objection and allow the witness to respond based on the Exhibit 4 and the other information that Carson Durst is aware of.
Ms. Durst, who was this email sent to?
This email was sent to me, Blake Johncourt, and many other of the product development engineers.
When did you leave Lush Fertilizer?
I left in 2006.
And what led you to this?
I felt like my relationship with the Johncourts led people to think that I was not qualified for my position.
And when you left, was there a I apologize, I misspoke. Was there a non-compete agreement made between you, Lush, and Tara?
Yes, but at the time of me looking for other jobs, I had no recollection of signing that.
So why are you speaking out against Drufo?
It's a matter of safety. Dakota Weirs had her whole life ahead of her, and it was ruined by something that could have easily been prevented.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
All right. Ms. Gonzalez, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You are Carson Durst, correct?
Correct.
And you at Tara's Greenery?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
You work at Tara's Greenery?
I do.
And that's where you look over the line and fertilizer lawn enhancement products?
Yes.
And before this, as we established, you were an employee for Lush?
Yes.
And you and Charles were like best friends?
We were.
And shortly before you graduated college, you still hadn't found a job, had you?
Correct.
And you also weren't top of your class, but did well enough in school?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, relevant?
What's the relevance, Ms. Gonzalez?
Sorry, which question?
I think, go ahead, Ms. Vasquez.
The question where you asked that although they weren't top of their class, they did have good enough grades, or I don't remember how you phrased it, but it was that question.
Your Honor, I'm just trying to establish Carson Durst's credibility and their background in college before their employment with Lush.
Okay. Ms. Vasquez, any reply?
No, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled.
And did Charles pull any strings for you to get into Lush Fertilizer?
He did. He said he would talk to his father for me.
And you knew the Doncourt family while you were hired, correct?
Yes.
And positions like the one you were offered were hard to come by for new graduates, is that correct?
Yes, they are.
And at Lush, you rose pretty quickly through the ranks, right?
I did.
And while working there, you did research on Drufo,
Yes.
but you could not find any studies which explored whether the chemical compounds had any adverse effects in humans.
Yes.
And after the second in-house study, the conclusion stated that Drufo was below what is required by law in terms of how dangerous this product is.
Could you rephrase the question?
Yes, in the second in-house study, were the results deemed that Drufo was below what was required by law in terms of how dangerous the product was?
I believe so, yes.
And are you aware that you signed a non-disclosure agreement with Lush Fertilizer?
I am.
And is it true that that non-disclosure agreement was breached?
It was, yes.
And it's also true that while you were working there, you did not have access to all the data analyzed by various team members of research and the development team?
That is true.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Does this break any of the rules stipulated in the non-compete agreement?
No, it has been 6 months since I have started working since I left Lush Fertilizer and started working at Terry's Greenery.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff has no further questions.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Ms. Durst, you may step down.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I would just like to reflect for the jury to disregard Exhibit 4 as it was not entered in evidence.
Okay. And Ms. Vasquez, any response to the objection regarding Exhibit 4? What Ms. Gonzalez is saying is was identified but not offered.
Would it be possible to admit it into evidence after the fact at this point?
The witness has stepped down, so I am going to grant the request.
Okay.
Jury will disregard Exhibit 4.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Do the plaintiffs have any further witnesses?
No, we do not.
Okay. Let's begin the defense case then.
The defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
All right.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
You're muted. Mr. Doncourt.
I am Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
And where do you work, Mr. Doncourt?
I am the CEO of Lush Fertilizer since 2000.
And why are we here today?
I am here today because Lush Fertilizer is being falsely accused of being negligent.
And what is Lush's history as a company?
Well, the company grew from an unknown producer of fertilizers to one of the world's largest suppliers of yard commercial fertilizers.
And has it been hard to keep up with Lush's success?
The success of Lush Fertilizer only came after so many years of research development to sustain sufficient capital.
And what was that work like?
I worked days and nights to help make Lush Fertilizer to be the profitable company that it is today. Due to Lush's success, I have been able to donate 10% of Lush annual profits to charity.
That's great to hear. What charities do you donate to?
Lush is able to donate to charities that are working hard to decrease the world's global nitrogen footprint, and now have our own charity as well.
And what is the benefit of your charity?
Our company has officially been instrumental in creating state and national legislation seeking further edu- education, environmental, worldwide issues.
And what accomplishments have you made as a CEO?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
What's the relevance?
Your Honor, I am allowing the CEO of Lush to answer the claim that Lush is a money-hungry company and give a better understanding of what Lush fertilizer is, and the CEO, Blake Doncourt.
Okay, Ms. Saldana, any response?
Your Honor, I don't see how this goes to the relevance of the case.
Any reply? I would like to hear a reply to that.
Can I have a moment to confer with co-counsel?
You may.
Thank you. Your Honor, this is relevant because we are defending the false allegations to Lush Fertilizer as a company.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think that his personal contributions are not relevant to the claim here.
So let's talk some more about Drufo. Were there any signs or labels on your product?
And let me just suggest, Mr. Doncourt, that you take the gum out of your mouth. It's not appropriate in court. Thank you. You need that question repeated. Okay.
So let's talk, going on to talk more about Drufo. Were there any signs or labels on your product, Mr. Doncourt?
You're muted, sir. Thank you.
Nah.
And why was that?
Well, with Lush's extensive research and testing before putting the product on the market, did not identify this as a specific risk to persons coming into contact with our fertilizer.
And what did this research say?
We had found there are little or no risk for people using our fertilizer. No need under federal or state law to put a warning on our product.
Were you ever aware of any reason to be concerned that Drufo was dangerous?
No, I certainly was never aware of any substantial concerns or was given any reason to be concerned about Drufo being dangerous.
And why was that?
That's because I have never seen any valid scientific evidence showing a reasonable probability that Drufo is carcinogenic, and there have been no conclusive studies showing referrals and carcinogenic in human beings.
And I want to go on and talk about Casey Rogers. Are you aware that Casey Rogers has been hired for the plaintiff side?
Yes, I'm aware the plaintiffs have hired Casey Rogers, claims to have done some of studies, but that have never published in any scientific journal.
Now, I know Carson Durst as well. Are you aware that they are also a witness for the plaintiff?
Yes, I am aware of it.
And are you aware that Carson claims he brought up Drufo issues to you?
Could you please repeat the question? I couldn't hear.
Yes. Are you aware that Carson Durst claims he brought up Drufo issues to you?
Yes, Carson had every opportunity to bring them to Lush's attention, or mine personally, for that matter.
And what was Carson's job?
Well, it was actually Carson's job to look for any dangerous or risks so that we could follow up on them.
And why do you feel so strongly about being accused of Dakota's disease?
Well, I would have never allowed our company to put it out on the market if it was verifiable that Drufo could be carcinogenic.
And do you know Dakota?
I don't.
Is there anything you would want to say to her?
Yes, I feel very terrible that Dakota has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a terrible disease. I hope that Dakota's recovery is swift.
That was a very thoughtful response. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
So you got divorced recently, correct?
Yes.
Objection,
And you're
relevance.
The objection is relevance, Ms. Saldana. Any
Your Honor,
response?
this goes to financial motivation of the witness.
Financial motivation?
Yes.
Any reply?
Yes, Your Honor. There is a lack of foundation, and I'm not understanding how his divorce correlates to this case.
I'll allow a little bit of leeway on this. I'll let you ask a couple of questions, but Ms. Gonzalez, be ready to hit that objection button, okay?
Okay, so you got divorced recently, correct?
Yes.
And you believe that your ex-wife was a gold digger, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Ms. Saldana?
Your Honor, I just repeated my question.
I think the second part you hadn't asked the first time
Okay,
about the wife being a gold digger.
yes, Your Honor, this still goes to financial motivation.
I'm going to sustain the objection as to the gold digger comment. You can ask him about his divorce.
Okay, so you were ordered by the judge to pay spousal support every month, right?
Yes.
And you're the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yes.
If your product was carcinogenic, it would be very damaging to your company's reputation, correct?
Yes, it would be.
And it would cost a lot of money, correct?
Yes.
So you don't bake your products, do you?
No.
And you are aware that baking your products would eliminate any harmful substances within them?
Yes.
And baking your products would cost you a lot of money, correct?
Yes.
That will be all. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Gonzalez, was there something you wanted to insert there?
Yes, asked and answered.
Okay, overruled. That's fine. Okay, Ms. Saldana, did you have any other questions?
No, that will be all. Thank you.
Okay, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Can you go ahead and explain to me why there was no warning labels on your product, Mr. Doncourt?
The reason why there was no warning labels on our product is because we had no reason or no verifiable reason to put it on because of research. There wasn't much. We researched a lot, and there wasn't any state of it. It was not regulated by any state or federal laws to put a risk label on our product.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Doncourt, thank you for your time today. You're excused. Any further witnesses from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. I call Skylar Weirs to the podium.
Okay. Skylar Weirs.
Please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record.
Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
And what is your occupation?
I write for the Rationalist magazine.
And what is Rationalist
Just
Magazine?
on a technical issue. Sorry. If the left brass witnesses have another computer somewhere, that may be why there's an echo. Is there a computer or phone or something else that's on in your space? And you can stop the timer while I'm dealing with this technical issue, please.
Your Honor, may I interject?
Yes.
We've been trying to figure out ourselves, but our timekeeper is in the same room, but we've been making her mute and have ours on while we are talking.
Okay.
No definitive reason why.
Seems like it's a little better now. Oh,
it might simply just be that
you know, I think, hang on one second. Let me hear again from Skylar Weirs. Just your name, sing a song, something. Give me some.
Hi, I'm Skylar Weirs.
Okay, that is much better. I think there may have been somebody else that was unmuted that may have caused the problem. So I think we're good. Timekeepers, you can start up again. I think we've addressed the technical issue. So go ahead, Ms. Kopp, sorry to interrupt.
Would you repeat the previous one?
The question?
Yes.
What is your occupation?
I'm an investigative journalist for the Rationalist magazine.
And what is Rationalist?
It's a quarterly science education magazine.
And what is the goal of Rationalist Magazine?
We promote our readers asking or looking into skepticism, and we promote the fighting of conspiracy theories. We try to get rid of misinformation in the community.
And what are some of the topics that you have investigated?
I've investigated climate change, vaccines, and the agri-tech industry.
And do you have a formal college education?
I do not know.
And is it fair to say that your knowledge and expertise comes from hands-on experience in the field?
I would say so, yes.
And does that knowledge and expertise come from extensive research into topics that you have written for Rationalists?
It does, yes.
Objection. Improper lay opinion. This witness has not been qualified as an expert.
Okay. Response?
Your Honor, I am laying foundation of how many years and what they have researched. I have not had them give any opinion yet.
I'll allow some leeway on this. Overruled.
And have you, sorry, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Would you say that your knowledge and expertise would come from research?
Excuse me, sorry.
No, you're fine. Would you say that your knowledge and expertise would come from extensive research from the topics that you have written for Rationalists?
It does, yes.
And have you ever researched investigated on the topic of Drufo?
I have, yes.
Can you describe that for me?
So I wrote on Drufo as part of a series. I was actually picked by an editor to write about this. I looked into a couple of national agencies such as the USDA and the NASDA to gather my research, and I spent nearly a year researching.
Narrative response.
Overruled.
And I spent nearly a year researching this topic.
Thank you. And would you say that those two resources were your main focus of sources to provide?
They were, yes.
And how long did you say that you spent reading and researching this?
Nearly a year.
Your Honor, I would like to move Skylar Weirs as an expert into modern agri-tech.
In any response or objection?
Your Honor, I would like to object with a voir dire.
You may.
Okay. Mr. Wires, do you have a bachelor degree?
I do not know.
Do you have a PhD?
No,
Do you have an MD?
I do not know.
Do you have any college degree?
I do not know.
Have you ever conducted any studies about Drufa?
I have never conducted any on my own, no.
And you don't have any scientific background, do you?
What would you consider a scientific background?
Well, that relates to the last question, just conducting studies about Drufa.
No, but I've looked into the studies. I would consider that a scientific background.
Okay, and you're not a scientist, are you?
No.
Your Honor, I would like to object to Mr. Wares being an expert witness under Rule 702.
Okay. Any response?
Your Honor, 702 doesn't require college or a formal education. He would be an expert because of his experience in the field of modern architect, and the experience allows him to help the jury understand the issue that is presented in this case.
Okay. Ms. Chambers, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Skylar Weirs will be accepted as an expert. The court finds that the evidence presented of their qualifications is consistent with what was outlined in the pretrial ruling. Therefore, the court will allow Skylar Weirs to be accepted as an expert in agritech.
So Skylar Weirs, have you ever heard of Lush fertilizer?
I have, yes.
And how did you come of Lush fertilizer?
I came across Lush fertilizer through my research on Drufo.
And how did Lush fertilizer come into your work?
So I was reading a lot about how Lush had come into contact with a lot of conspiracy theories and how it was being targeted, essentially.
And what did you discover about Lush that had caused this harsh feedback?
Well, I discovered that this harsh feedback was hurting Lush's business practices.
And is it normal for Lush to get businesses like Lush to get this kind of feedback?
It happens quite often, yes.
And in what ways is Drufo a helpful product?
Drufo is a helpful product because it requires the use of less fertilizers, pesticides, and it decreases nitrogen runoff, so it's very beneficial to the earth.
And would you say Drufo causes cancer? And to be more specifically, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I would say no, there have not been any credible sources that have linked Drufo and cancer.
And as you mentioned, is there any research connecting the two?
No, not from the USDA or the NASDA, which are the two main sources that I used in my research.
And in your expert opinion, do you think Drufo is harmful?
No, Drufo is actually more likely to protect customers than other types of fertilizer and pesticide.
Your Honor, no further questions.
All right. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Okay. Mr. Weirs, you're Dakota's twin, correct?
That is correct.
And isn't it true that you have no scientific degree?
I do not have any, no.
I would like to move on to your
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answer.
Overruled.
And I would like to move on to your connection to Lush fertilizers. So, Mr. Weirs, you wrote in your witness statement that the chemical Drufo is a pesticide, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you also wrote that pesticides are, by definition, poison, right?
That is correct.
Do you or have you ever worked with the Lush Fertilizer Company?
What do you mean what do you mean worked for? Like been employed by?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I'm so sorry to hear about your mother's death. You wrote that you were cut off financially after her.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Ms. Chambers, what's the relevance?
These questions go into the financial motivation of this witness.
Any reply?
Your Honor, can I have a moment to converse with my co-counsel?
Sure.
So I don't know how it's relevant that the mother's death goes with the financial.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I'll allow some leeway on this. Ms. Chambers, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So can you confirm that after the onset of Dakota's illness, your father made plans to support Mr. Weir's financially?
He did,
Objection, Your Honor,
yes.
speculation.
Overruled.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, and would you mind speaking up for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
So can you confirm that after the onset of Dakota's illness, your father made plans to support him financially?
He did, yes.
And you said that you struggle with gambling, didn't you?
I have, yes.
And you're in debt because of your gambling problem, correct?
I am.
And once again, you're struggling with paychecks, correct?
Struggling financially?
Yes.
I guess that depends on your definition of struggling financially.
Okay.
You're gonna have to be more specific for me.
But you're being paid by the defense to be here, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rears. That will be all.
Okay, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, can you explain how Drufo isn't harmful, as you stated it was a pesticide?
Yeah, it's actually a binding agent and it helps decrease nitrogen runoff, which is a good thing for the earth.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. All right, thank you. Mr. Weirs, thank you for your time today. You're excused. Any further witnesses from the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call our last witness to the stand, Dr. Devin Williams.
Okay, Dr. Williams. All right, you may proceed.
Can you please state your first and last name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Devin Williams, Williams.
And what is your current occupation?
I lead toxicology research and development at Lush Fertilizer. And currently, I'm the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee.
And what do you do at Lush?
Well, I'm a research toxicologist by training. My primary undertaking is to understand how biological systems, how we respond to the environment, whether that's alcohol, and this might sound a bit complicated, so I'll simply neurochemical pathways, which you can think of as neurons and synapses within the brain itself, or inorganic compounds that are the result of organophosphorus products, which once again, I won't be going into because I don't want to take all your time here today. I simply also research test results to determine the effects of potentially toxic chemical agents. And my job is to tell if a substance is going to harm the average human and how to neutralize that in the bud.
And how long have you been with Lush Fertilizer?
I've been with Lush for almost 12 years now, and I started leading the toxicology labs at 7.
Do you have any degrees?
I have a number of certifications, primarily in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah. My bachelor's degree in toxicology was at the University of Utah. My master's of science in forensic toxicology was also in Utah, and my PhD in pharmacology and toxicology was at the Colorado State University.
And do you have any publications?
Yes, you can see my vitae for that.
At this time, Your Honor, I'm tendering Dr. Devin Williams as an expert witness in the field of toxicology.
Any objection, Ms. Vasquez?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Dr. Williams will be so accepted as an expert.
Can you tell the jury when you first had to deal with Drufo?
Yes, that would be when I first started working with Lush. The company was actually in a bit of unique situation at the time, as basically half of the research team had already moved on to other ventures, primarily outside of the company. My job was to fill in the numbers, primarily as a technician, as the turnover rate was beginning to impact the testing timelines. So things weren't coming along as smoothly as they should have.
And have you ever had a promotion?
Yes, thereafter I was promoted to lead the labs.
And can you tell the jury what fertilizers do?
Fertilizers have two primary functions. They enhance the growth of plants, either by adding nutrients or enhancing the effectiveness of the soil that's already there, either by modifying its water retention or improving its aeration.
And how does DRUFO connect to your last statement?
I'd say that DRUFO is rather revolutionary in this matter, as it straddles both modes and simply, in my expert opinion, is better than most 21st century fertilizers.
And what was the main goal with DRUFO?
We simply wanted to develop something that was better for the environment, that didn't contribute to the pollution that's already plaguing our planet so much. And I personally believe that we did so with DRUFO, yes.
And were you aware that DRUFO is banned in France?
Yes, but there's actually a story about that is more than people know about it than simple first misconceptions.
And can you tell the jury more about that?
So it's not only banned in France, it's banned in the European Union as a whole, and not exactly for concerns over cancer risks. There's an intervention that the government has proposed called the European Nations Nitrate Directive. And it essentially stipulates that in order to reduce the number of nitrate runoff essentially in lab tests, you can have no more than incidental runoff, as I was stating before.
And what does the US do?
The US Department of Agriculture conducts its own research and doesn't follow what the European Union does.
And what has Lush been doing about this issue?
Actually, we're currently making a study to prove that the findings that our nitrate runoff is nothing more than a lab problem. In real world situations, the nitrate runoff, is nothing more than a rounding error.
Have you read Dr. Casey Rogers' study on DRUFO?
In fact, I have, and I dislike to say this as a fellow professional, but I don't think it has very much scientific founding.
Can you talk more about that?
Yes, I believe that it is biased, as there are no other studies that have duplicated this in regards to what he generally did on this specific topic of DRUFO. In addition, sorry, my thoughts got away from me. I don't believe that the way he organized his experiment was well equipped scientifically, as he was comparing apples to oranges. Instead of comparing a multitude of people working within environmental businesses and farm life, he should have compared farmers with DRUFO to farmers that did not utilize DRUFO. While seemingly insignificant, there are large differences in lifestyles between farmers and gardeners.
Is there a connection between DRUFO and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Well, that would fall in the realm of statistics, and I would not like to give you a statistics lesson today. So I will simply say that it's a statistic improbability.
Did DRUFO cause Dakota-Weir's disease?
In my expert opinion, I would not say so.
That is all, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You are currently working for Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yes, but I believe that I have as much bias as any other expert witness in this case,
And you do get paid by Lush Fertilizer.
as I work there, yes.
And so it is true that Druvo is banned in the EU?
Yes, but as I stated in my direct earlier, it's not over cancer-causing concerns.
Is it true that baking the fertilizer would remove any risk of carcinogens being in the final product?
Well, scientifically, you can never really say that anything is 100% possible, but I would say
Dr.
that
Williams, a yes or no answer would suffice, please.
tentatively, yes.
As the head of toxicology, did you ever raise the concern that Druvo could be possibly carcinogenic?
Well, there were thoughts of doing that.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff has no further questions.
Okay, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, does your financial bias play a role in the testimony you're giving today?
No, I would not say so. I'm well paid and I do not see any further need for money.
That is all, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Williams, you may step down. Any further witnesses from the defense?
The defense rests, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Are we ready for closing argument then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, plaintiff, you may proceed with closing argument.
Your Honor, members of the jury, my name is Emma Chambers, representing the plaintiff in this case. The life of Dakota Weirs has been flipped upside down by her recent diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now Dakota's life will never be the same. She will continue to suffer from this disease for days, weeks, months, and years to come. I think both sides in this case can agree on that. However, we, the plaintiff, are taking this one step further and urging the jury to choose justice. Dakota was a healthy, happy member of society before her prolonged and continued use of Lush fertilizer products containing the known carcinogen Druvo. She was a normal kid, only 20 years old at her life-changing diagnosis. Growing up, she had a love for the piano, fostered by her caring grandpa, who tragically passed away, leaving only memories and a real talent in his granddaughter. Dakota worked in a landscaping company, Haven Landscaping, from the age of 14. It was working in this company that Miss Weirs was exposed to Druvo through Lush fertilizers. My clients and witnesses clearly proved that Lush fertilizers knew their products contained carcinogens before releasing them to the public, and did absolutely nothing. Miss Dakota Weirs herself has gone through the trouble to be here today and represent the victims of this dangerous chemical. Dr. Casey Rogers, who is a real scientist, conducted a study which found possible negative health effects to those with exposure to Druvo, including the onset of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Does this sound familiar? Carson Durst testified to the fact that there was evidence of Druvo being carcinogenic in rats, and that the company refused to bake the product. Meanwhile, Blake Doncourt is the chief executive of Lush Fertilizers. Think about this. They only want what's best for the company, what will give them the most money. Skylar Weirs, the expert witness, has absolutely no scientific degree, not even a bachelor degree in college. They were hired to write about the benefits of Druvo on a website, only researching the good things about it. Now they're here, testifying against their own blood twin, letting greed consume them. Compare and contrast both sides of the case. It's clear that the plaintiff has more qualified and trustworthy witnesses. Dr. Devin Williams specialized in the environmental effects of Druvo. They're clearly a supporter of Druvo because of the less harmful effects on the environment, letting this cloud their judgment of possible impacts of this dangerous chemical. All of the witnesses in the defense failed to address the concerns voiced by Carson Durst about baking the product. Ladies and gentlemen, this case isn't a matter of who has more evidence. The plaintiff has all the evidence. Dakota Weirs went to work in the scorching heat. It's only natural for her to dress for comfort. How was she supposed to know that not wearing an obstructive mask and heavy long-sleeve clothes would ruin her life? When Lush Fertilizers sent products containing Druvo to the market, they knew that there was a risk factor. If a product requires users to take extensive precautions that could be prevented just to use it, That product should not exist. It's only common sense that someone would make a mistake eventually, not knowing the true dangers of the product. This time it was Miss Dakota. If this isn't fixed, it could happen to anyone again. It isn't fair to Dakota that she should suffer for possible years to come from one mistake. The thing is, Dakota isn't a criminal. She's a normal citizen just like us. She shouldn't be punished for the irresponsible mistakes of this company. If it hadn't been for this rushed and money-driven decision, Dakota Weirs could still be continuing with her normal life. We, the plaintiffs, are all mourning the loss of this amazing member of society. Because of her illness, Dakota has had to put a pause on her whole life. She's had to stop volunteering at the homeless shelter, as well as playing the piano, which was very dear to her. Doesn't she deserve better? It's too late now to reverse the devastating effects this disease has had on Miss Weirs, but there's still time to make a change. This scenario doesn't have to happen to anyone else. While winning this case will never reverse the havoc that this disease has wreaked on her life, it will give an ill woman peace of mind. If the jury sides with the plaintiff in this case, further damage could be prevented. This case could be the beginning of safer measures for all those involved. Most importantly, justice could be served to Dakota Weirs, the victim of a money-hungry, careless company. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all that needs to be said.
All right, thank you.
Also, I don't know if it's too late now, but I would like to reserve the remaining time for rebuttal. If it's not
I'll allow it. I think it's only about 20 seconds left, though.
okay.
Okay. All right, closing.
Yes, Your Honor. The careless consumer caused her own cancer. You may have just heard that Dakota Weir's life was flipped upside down from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but Lush Fertilizer has proved today that they are a safe, responsible company. The plaintiff has failed to bring any verifiable research today. Lush Fertilizer did produce a fertilizer product. This was Drufo, but Lush did not breach their duty as Lush has been found to be a safe and it was a consumer at fault. As we are all saddened by the diagnosis of Mrs. Weirs, we ask you, the jury, to see that Lush was in fact not negligent and took the proper precautions when manufacturing this product, and find that Lush was not responsible for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that Mrs. Weirs has. Today, my team and I brought in multiple witnesses to prove why Drufo is a safe product and was at hands of a careless consumer. Today was about money, and that's all this case is about, is collecting money due to a careless consumer who put herself at risk and ignored the instructions that Lush put out. You heard from Blake Doncourt, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer, who testified on behalf of Lush's research and development team, who had done extensive research and testing before putting their own product on the market. You then heard from Skylar Weirs, who testified today that Drufo is helpful to the environment. Mr. Weirs talked about how Drufo is an effective pesticide, which helps Lush Fertilizer to not add in any other pesticides that are found in other products. Mr. Weirs said that stated that there is much more of a causal link between cancer and other pesticides than Drufo itself. Mr. Weirs also stated today that Drufo is more likely to protect the consumers by eliminating exposures to any other recognized pesticide. Finally, you've heard from Dr. Devin Williams, who talked about Drufo being banned in France, but gave reasoning behind this. This ban is not based on concerns over cancer risk. The European Union will not let out fertilizer that contains nitrates. Yes, Drufo does contain nitrogen, but Drufo works on reducing the amount of nitrates that are accumulated under real-world situations. On the plaintiff's side, you heard from Carson Durst, who used to work for Lush Fertilizer, and how she may have a personal vendetta against Lush since she immediately went to go work for Lush Fertilizer's competitor. You then heard from Dr. Casey Rogers, who has a financial bias on the outcome of this case. So therefore, he will be more lenient on the plaintiff's side. Our own doctor even talked about how Dr. Rogers' study was biased and had zero peer review, and how their career has been focused on finding harmful effects caused by chemical agents. And this shows itself how biased Dr. Rogers is. Finally, you heard from Dakota Weirs, who was the careless consumer at hand. Mrs. Weirs admitted that their boss told them to cover their face when working with chemicals, to wear long sleeve pants, gloves, and a mask when working with fertilizers, but because one knows that working with any chemicals, you must be cautious around it. But Mrs. Weirs admitted today in the courtroom that she did not wear any of these clothing articles and stated in her own affidavit, but sometimes it was just too hot and the wind felt so good. This is a careless consumer. With all this to be considered, my team has proved that Lush Fertilizer Incorporation was not responsible for the diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that Dakota Weirs has developed. We ask you, the jury, to take a look at the evidence that this was common sense to cover up and be cautious around chemicals. This was not Lush's fault. This was a consumer at fault. It was a careless consumer who is here for the money. If you do find that we have failed to prove this today, we ask you, the jury, to award the lowest amount possible today. It has been a pleasure to appear before you in this important case. My team and I appreciate your attention throughout this matter, and we thank you for listening to both sides equally as you promised you would do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Chambers, you have 20 seconds left for rebuttal if you would like to use it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you of the facts here. The onset of Dakota's illness was inarguably caused by the irresponsible company decisions of Lush Fertilizers. Once again, the plaintiff urges you to side with the true victim in this case and make amends to the wrong that Lush has inflicted. That will be all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. All right. I'm going to ask at this point, the evidence has been submitted. The jury will be retiring to make their determination on the evidence and to score the participants. But before they do that, I'm going to ask everyone to please turn their cameras on so that we can give a round of applause to the participants who all did just a fantastic job. So excellent job. It's hard to do it this way. I would absolutely say that you all did a fantastic job under challenging circumstances. So excellent work. I'll give the scorekeepers an opportunity to get their score sheets completed, and then we'll spend a few minutes with some reflections. Okay.
Hi, Judge. Can I have a reminder of the team names?
Yes, ryegrass is the plaintiff and lemongrass is the defense.
Thank you, Judge.
Mm-hmm. And if the courtroom host could just let me know when all the score sheets have been submitted.
Judge Field.
Yes.
I had an issue the first round, and I have to send in mine by my phone. So if you can just hang on for a moment. We did this the first time around. It'll take me a minute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I have not received the scorecards yet, but if you want to start with the feedback, that would be okay. And I'll hang out until the scores get those all submitted too.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Let me start first of all, in part to give the scorekeepers some additional time to finish their comments. But let me just start by saying I thought everyone did a fantastic job. And turn on your cameras if you would, please. I'd love to see you while I'm chatting and while the jurors are chatting. And let me ask also, if you could just please identify your coaches for us. So for Ryegrass, who are your coaches?
Pat Rensworth and Christy Van, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her last name.
And Gazbach?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Good.
And Isaac Morley.
Okay. And how about for Lemongrass, who are your coaches?
It is going to be Kyle Stapleton, Lily Parker, and Ethan Dock.
Okay. All right. Well, let's give a round of applause, everyone, to the coaches, because I know that you've obviously worked very hard with them. That's very apparent from your presentations. And let's also give a round of applause to your parents who have supported you through this and in many cases, I think provided the technology support that you needed to be able to do this in this most unusual way. I really wish that we could do this in person because it is so much better, it's a much different experience. But you all were troopers in handling the technology challenges and in working well in your presentations. I thought that everyone did just a fantastic job. I was very impressed, particularly with the attorneys and the objections that were made. I thought that they were appropriate and thoughtful, and that they often gave me things to think hard about, which I appreciated. So I thought you all were right on top in terms of the objections. One overall comment that I want the attorneys to keep in mind is that on redirect, the redirect should be limited to things that were already addressed on cross and not open up new areas. And there were a couple of times when it seemed like the new areas were being opened up, and once it was called out, and I didn't think it quite was a new area, and the other was a couple times that it was not called out and I think could have been successfully. But overall, I thought that the objections were great. The presentations were great. You all seem very prepared. In terms of the witnesses, I was very impressed with the witnesses and your knowledge of the facts. This is complicated. This is a very complex case. When I first saw the problem, I thought, oh my goodness, how are they going to be able to deal with this and handle all of these experts and all of this technical information and evidence? And you all did just a fantastic job with that. I was very, very impressed with the witnesses and their ability to keep all of those facts in mind, particularly some of the more complicated language and technology and all of those things. It was really, really well done. I was impressed overall, I have to say, with everyone. I thought you all were very professional in your presentation, and I don't have any additional comments other than to say bravo. I thought everyone did just a fantastic job. So thank you for presenting this today. Let me ask for comments from our jurors. Magistrate Majoros, do you want to just introduce yourself and give your background a little bit so that these folks know you? I guess I should have done that as well. I didn't do.
Don't you do that first? Yours is much longer.
I'm Judge Field. I'm a retired judge. I just retired in October. I was a trial court judge for just under 11 years in Larimer County in the 8th Judicial District. District court judge meant that I sat on trials, criminal trials, civil trials similar to this. This would be a case that would have been in my courtroom had it been a real case. Divorces and child abuse and neglect, and a mental health problem-solving court. So it's kind of fun to get the robe back on, and even if I'm sitting in my office instead of in a courtroom. All right. So.
All right. So my name is Candace Majoris. I'm a magistrate in the 8th Judicial District. So I had the honor of serving with Judge Field when she was on the bench. And I practiced law for about 25 years before taking the bench. And so I just want to say it's amazing what all of you do. I have no doubt that I could not have done it as professionally and as beautifully as you did when I was in high school. So hats off to all of you. I know that it takes a tremendous amount of time and preparation to do what you do, particularly given our challenging circumstances. And so I just want to congratulate you all on a job well done. like Judge Field, I thought that your grasp of the facts was terrific. It is not a simple fact scenario. I know there's lots of different directions you can go. And so it takes some real strategizing to know what would be most effective. And you did a very good job in handling the evidence and in handling the witnesses. I had a couple of comments. I just on openings. Take a look at your openings, and you don't want to admit anything that would be contrary to your client's interests. So, and I may have misheard, but I thought it talked, the opening and the closing and with plaintiff talked about the idea that it was careless use that caused the cancer, which then leads to the presumption that there was a carcinogen in the fertilizer. So you need to be a little bit careful in terms of how you word that. But I thought the openings and the closings by all were really well done. Again, that is very demanding to do that. And I know you're not supposed to use notes, which is just amazing. I thought the attorneys did a terrific job. Objections are tough. It's, you know, you have to worry about timing because obviously you're trying to interrupt the answer, right? You're trying to get that objection in before the answer comes out. So even if you say objection and then you have to think for a moment of, okay, what would be the proper foundation or the proper objection, you know, take that time to do it. Typically in court, you're not allowed to kind of keep adding on to your objections. So it's important to do the best you can in terms of getting those proper objections out right in the beginning. Emily, are you there, Emily? I don't see Emily. Yes, she is. There she is. Emily, I thought you were very believable and sympathetic as Dakota. So good for you. You made one comment where you were asked about a statement and you asked to clarify what statement it was. That's always good with all of you witnesses to really make sure that you're honing in on how the question is phrased to make sure that you understand what it is you're answering. There were objections that were made that were really good. And again, I know those are tough to handle, but it's just best to keep it succinct if you can and focus on what will be most persuasive to the court in terms of the objection you're making. Gregory, are you there, Gregory? I thought Gregory was very matter of fact. He seemed, confident of his answers. Abby too. It was good, Abby, the way you explained the EU ban. I thought you did that well. And Gregory was very matter of fact in terms of, for example, the gambling issue, just saying, yep, I've had issues. So those were just a couple of things I noticed, but I thought your questions, your preparation was outstanding, and I just congratulate you all. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this. It's really terrific.
Thank you for your feedback.
All right, thank you. Brian?
Hi, students. I'm sorry I can't really get my video working here, but I'm Brian. I actually just graduated from law school about a year ago, and I'll just keep it kind of short, but I'm really impressed with all of you. When I first did mock trial in high school, I froze and stuttered and I had the right ideas and I couldn't articulate them, and you all did a really good job of that today. And I think that you should really be very proud of yourselves and just keep going, and whatever you're going to do, you're going to be very successful.
All right, thank you. Shyla.
Hi. I had a couple, I guess, critiques, but sorry, I'm gonna look at your names because I can't remember them all. But Michaela, I thought you did a really good job because you seemed really confident and sure of your answers, which was really convincing. Whether or not you're right or wrong, it was just like, it was really motivating for me to believe you. I genuinely did. And I thought that sorry, I'm going off of names here. Hunter, I think, was super believable, totally realistic. And like Brian said, I mean, I had one government class. I'm not an attorney at all, but I had one government class, and it was like the worst part of the entire semester was having to give a speech in front of the class. Like, I don't know how any of you guys do it, but I thought that was really believable. I really appreciated. It was interesting for me to see the like objections and stuff, because I've never really seen a court case at all. So this was totally new for me. So I think it was a really good introduction to this sort of thing. So good job, everybody. Yeah.
Okay. I realized we forgot to do a round of applause for the timekeepers who have a thankless job, but I want to thank you for that. Because I know that is a hard job, but you both were right on top of it. So thank you for your hard work there. All right. Any other comments or questions? Anybody have any questions?
I did have one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that like I would have done it too. Like I would have been like taped to my script just because that's safest and I have it planned out and I'm ready to say it. But at the same time, that it comes across as though it's scripted. So maybe just like rehearsing a little bit more in your head so that when you say it, it seems more genuine. I think that kind of went just all across the board, just making it seem like you're not reading a script, I guess, would be my last comment. But
okay. Thank you. All right, are all the score sheets in?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, they are all in. So I'm